mystery religions when it comes to these kind of esoteric, occult wisdoms, or even something as simple as atheism, right? There's an introduction. You can't just pull somebody in there right away. You have to introduce them. You have to prime them with certain questions, right? Like a person asks, well, if Hashem, if God is so great, then why do bad things happen to good people? Hey everybody, and welcome back to Live with the Times. Grateful to be here, grateful for all of you. Today we are continuing here in Sefer Shemot, here in the third Parashah, Parashah's Bo, and this is the first Aliyah of Parashah's Bo. As we were learning last week in Va'era, right, we went through the first 7 plagues. In case you weren't paying attention during Seder, right, every year, right, it's blood, frogs, lice, wild beasts, epidemic, boils, and hail, right? And this week we will finish up the 10 plagues and experience the beginning of the redemption there in that regard. The first mitzvah was given to the Jews, and right, finishing up here with the hail, locusts, darkness, and the plague of the firstborn. And so, obviously, one of the things that we can struggle with here is a couple things with these parshas, is feeling kind of a little bit too familiar with them, right? Being as though there's something that we go over in the Seder every year. It's something that we feel like we have a mastery of, we have a relationship with, which is good, right? And these are obviously very, very famous parts of the Torah. Hollywood has its own take on it. Prince of Egypt, everything. So it's easy to see and to feel like we know what's going on over here. And in that regard, familiarity can sometimes mean that we take things for granted, that we feel like we have mastery over something, or we don't revisit something with new eyes, with mature eyes. We think about them as we did when we were children. How are the plagues? And so here we're going to talk about here the 7th plague here in the first Aliyah, exactly what it means and why it's important for us to keep fresh eyes. Now, before we get into that, make sure to like and subscribe here to the channel. Leave a comment. Tell me what your relationship is here with this Aliyah, with the 7th plague here, and Pharaoh questioning Moshe, Aaron, and how they should be going about their business and the Jews' business, right? The Bnei Israel. So, as it starts here, it says, "Vayomer Hashem Moshe, boi el paroi, ki ani hikpadeti es liboi ve'es lev avadav leman shiti ototai ele bekir boi." So Hashem said to Moshe, "Go to Paro, come to Paro, bo le Paro. For I have hardened his heart in the hearts of his servants, in order that I may display my signs among them, so I may set my signs among them." And it goes on to talk about how the main thing about this is so that we should be able to tell to our children and our children's children how we made a mockery, how Hashem made a mockery of the Egyptians by displaying his signs among them, in order that they should know that I am Hashem. And so Moshe and Aaron, they went to Paro, and they said, "How long will you refuse to be humble? Shelachi ami vayavduni. Send out my people. Let my people go so they can worship me. For if you refuse to let my people go tomorrow, machar arbe bigvulecha. Tomorrow I'll bring locusts to your territory." All right. Seems simple enough, right? We've heard this already 7 times. This is the 8th time over here. It seems, once again, like I said, that we understand this. And this inherently is a danger. Rebbe Nachman brings about such a beautiful, beautiful lesson here in Torah 64 of Likutei Maharan about how this is such a deep, deep, deep teaching, right, about how when we look at the tzadikim and what the tzadikim are saying with their words and what the Torah is saying, that we can think that we understand what it's saying, but how much deeper the feeling is, how deep everything is. Right? In Torah 64, Rebbe Nachman, he comes and he says that this is what it means that it says, Bo le paro, for I have hardened the heart of his servants. And may set these ototai, the signs of mine in their midst, so you account to your children and children's children how I made a mockery. How tomorrow you'll bring locusts into the borders. Right? When he's talking about paro, what is paro? Paro represents the vacated space. Since paro connotes nullification from the expression tafriyo, stopping the people. So paro, when we're talking about paro, he's actually the vacated space. Before Hashem created the world, how is it possible there's an infinite Hashem and there's a finite world? Well, we have something called the tzimtzum, how Hashem restricted himself, so to speak. And so in this time of this restriction, there was a void created, so to speak, where it appears as though there's no Hashem. This is called the vacated space. And so in this vacated space, now there can be a creation. And so there was a creation, there is a creation. But for this place that exists, of the vacated space, this is where heretics can come and they say that Hashem doesn't exist. How can you say Hashem exists? If Hashem exists, then how can we be finite? How can we exist if there's a God? Right? So paro also connotes revelation. The aspect of the vacated space was the void and vacated of everything. The entire creation is revealed within it, as explained above, as we were saying. So there in the vacated space, since it's impossible to comprehend the aspect of the vacated space, as explained above, there's a hardening of the heart. Right? Because a person can't understand truly what's in the vacated space and how the vacated space came to be, and how Hashem can exist in the vacated space, even though he's void, it's void of anything in the vacated space. Right? This is where we can find atheists, where atheism can come from. Right? Because specifically, there is no Hashem by definition in the vacated space, or so it appears. So these are where the questions, the aha questions, arise. Right? And it says, right, to know how to speak to a heretic. And so because there is no answer to these questions, a person can then be dismissive. Say, you see, there is no Hashem. It's all lies. It's all craziness. It's all shtuyot. You're dedicating your life to craziness that means nothing. Right? And they're just, it's easy to, as I mentioned, dismissive, and you're hardening your heart. Right? A person now can have hard-heartedness. Right? Thus, all the wisdoms that stem from there involve hard-heartedness. They leave one with questions about Hashem, and it's impossible to find Hashem there, since he vacated his godliness from there, so to speak, in order that the creation could be able to come into existence. So therefore, it says, Hashem said to Paro, Bo, that specifically Moshe should be the one to go into the vacated space. Right? The person should know that we shouldn't be going to the vacated space. And we'll get into how to go into the vacated space, not for me and you, but the tzadikim go into the vacated space. And the only way to get across, we'll talk about how to get across the vacated space. But that specifically, most people cannot go into the vacated space because they can become heretics, specifically. Right? So that's why it says, Bo, leparo, come with me. Hashem is saying, come with me. The tzaddik can come with me. But only if you come with me. If you have Hashem, if you're already well equipped with Hashem, you can go into the vacated space. This is because it's impossible to find Hashem there. As explained above, right? By definition, Hashem made it appear as though he's not there. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a creation. Right? So it says, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants. The servants are the aspect of the introductions to all the wisdoms. Each wisdom has introductions, which are called servants in attendance to the wisdom. Right? So before a person can be introduced to a wisdom, or before a person can be revealed a wisdom, when it comes to these mystery religions, when it comes to these kind of esoteric, occult wisdoms, or even something as simple as atheism, right? There's an introduction. You can't just pull somebody in there right away. You have to introduce them. You have to prime them with certain questions, right? Like a person asks, well, if God is so great, then why do bad things happen to good people? If this world's so great and God created everything, then why do we have to follow certain laws? Why do we have to do a bris milah if Hashem created man perfect? And all these things are just run around questions to make a person start doubting. Right? As the serpent was speaking to Chava, who says that when you touch the tree, you'll die. You surely won't die. But see, in the question itself is the trick, right? Where the serpent didn't say, right? The serpent, and then she said, well, Hashem, did he say, did he not say? And the same thing here, right? Who said that man's perfect in the first place? We're not perfect. We come here in order to achieve perfection. So, of course, we need a bris milah, because we're imperfect already, right? So all these different things, they introduce questions, and these are the servants, which involve hard-heartedness, because one is left with questions explained above, right? A person can get the runaround and start thinking and wondering, and then the person is primed to be inserted misinformation that isn't answering the questions. Right? It's like the show Lost, right? You know, where the writer, he specifically said, I create mystery boxes. And you don't have to answer the question, but by creating this mystery box, you open intrigue, right? So it's a hack that we have as humans where because we want to be intrigued, because we like surprises, what's in door number 3, right? You know it's in door number 1, door number 2, right? You get a new car, you get a vacation. Door number 3, I want was door number 3. We like to be surprised, right? So this is what it means that I might set these ototai, these signs of mine in their midst. In other words, the reason that I hardened his heart, such as that it was possible to find God there, was in order that I might set into the otiyot, the letters of the creation. That is, in order that the creation might come into existence within the vacated space. Right? There wouldn't be such a thing even as letters if it weren't for the vacated space. Because letters are, by definition, they're signs, they are finite, to have certain sounds, right? They look a certain way, they mean a certain thing. So each letter in of itself cannot exist in the infinite. They can only exist, so the beginning of their existence was in the vacated space, in the place where it appears that there's no Hashem. Since if he had not contracted himself, his godliness from there, there would have not been no place for the creation as explained above. So in that you might recount, right? Recount, for there inside the creation that came into existence within the vacated space, you'll be able to recount and speak. Right now we have the ability to think and have ideas and be able to speak and give things over, which does not exist before this. This is why in Parshas Bereshit, right, we start off Bereshit bara Elokim, right, at the beginning of God's creating, when in fact Hashem had been creating from beforehand. There already existed time, there existed letters, there existed all these kind of things that we talk about in the Zohar of what was created before Bereshit. It's because the letters and speech through which the creation came into existence are there. And Hashem had only created them in the ears of your children and your grandchildren. In the main, the entire creation was for the sake of compassion. When we talk about children and grandchildren, we don't have children and grandchildren to give over compassion, to be compassionate to somebody else. What a great gift it is to be a tati, to be an abba, to be an ima, to be a mommy, to be whatever, right? Because we are able to grow. By giving, we grow. By having something to give to that depends on us, we grow. We are able to give compassion, as explained above, and the creation was through the spoken word, as explained above. Thus, in each thing that was created within the vacated space, there's a contraction of compassion, meaning that, and Hashem wanted to create the world in order to be compassionate, but he couldn't just be compassionate and let everything out, because then there wouldn't be a place for us to exist. So there had to be a contraction at Tzimtzum. And this in of itself is a compassion, even though it looks like it's constricting. Right? When you place rules on your kids, they look constricting, but they're actually compassionate. Go figure that not letting your kid climb up and play with fire on the stove is compassionate, but you're restricting them. How is that possible? Right? We can see it, how it's possible with children that's compassionate, but us as adults, We want to be able to do everything. We don't want constrictions. We don't want rules. Right? A person can have Shalom look at it as overbearing. I want to be free. Meanwhile, the person is anything but free. For God contracted his compassion and created that thing in that shape and formed in accordance with his compassion. Without that compassion, there would be no constriction. Without the constriction, there could be no existence. With the measure of God's compassion determining that this thing be as it is. This is because compassion is the root of the entire creation. Since everything was created in order to reveal his compassion explained above. Right? The whole point of creation, Hashem should be able to have a world where a person, through his own free will, can reveal the goodness and experience the goodness and the pleasure of what it is to experience the das, the connection, the oneness, the wholeness with the oneness and the wholeness with Hashem Yitbarach. This is, you will then be able to recount in the ears of your children and your grandchildren. Thus is the extent of a father's compassion for a child, as Rashi comments on the verse in Bereshit, that you will not deal falsely with me or with my children or with my grandchildren. Right? So falsely, right, is the opposite of compassion. Truth to your children and grandchildren. With regard to that which is after creation, you will be able to recount and speak and comprehend the contraction of his compassion that is in each thing. Thus is the extent of a father's compassion for a child. That this thing contains this much compassion, that thing contains that much compassion. Right? Each single thing that a person is doing for their children is a different measure of compassion, a different expression of compassion. When a father is taking out his son to ice cream, it's one level of compassion. Later on, when the father is telling the son, no, you can't have ice cream before bed, that's another kind of compassion. And this is how I've made a mockery of the Egyptians. Yes, very good. Because why? Because this is what the aspect of the forces of evil that come from the overload of the light. How did evil come to exist in the first place? Hashem created everything. Right? But this was in a back around way, meaning that this was an overload of the light from the shattering of the vessels. Rashi explains that I made a mockery means I made a parody. I created a parody and mockery in the world, namely the aspect of the evil forces. That the evil forces look like they can be holy. Right? It can lead you astray and make a person think, oh, this is their good path. This seems good. Who says it's not good? Because they parallel holy only as one imitates. It's like a mime who's parodying and mimicking. Right? They're only like a monkey that parodies and imitates a human being. They have no actual kedusha in and of itself. It can only look and act like it. It can dress in a certain way and talk in a certain way and invite in a certain way and make people successful in a certain way. Right? And of ototai, of my signs, of my ototot, which I have wrought in their midst, there are otiyot there. There are signs, there are words, there are letters, there are vowels. Because they stem from the overload of the light, from the shattering of the vessels explained above. Therefore, that you may know that I am Hashem. In that place, you will be able to recognize Hashem, since there are holy sparks and letters there, as explained above. Right? There are sparks there. That's the whole point. There is a klipa noga. There is a thing that wants to be revealed. There is something that is good that wants to be revealed. So it can appear as though the whole thing is good, because there are sparks there. That is, even within the aspect of the parody of the forces of evil, the aspect of that first heresy, which stems from an overload of the light, as explained above, there too you will be able to recognize Hashem, that Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is everywhere. And this is what the whole point is. Hashem is even in the vacated space. Hashem is even in the place where atheism exists. Of this it is said, and know what to answer the heretic, as explained above. For it is possible to find their letters and sparks to answer them, since they stem from the shattering of the vessels, and explained above. There is an argument. There is an argument. But who can make the argument? Only Moshe Rabbeinu. Only the tzaddik. That's why it says, and Moshe and Aaron went to Paro. Right? It says, tomorrow I'll bring locusts into your borders. Tomorrow, meaning in the future, meaning in the times of Moshiach. Tomorrow is for receiving the reward. The aspect of tomorrow, my righteousness will bear witness for me. The aspect of receiving reward in the future. So when he's saying tomorrow, I'll bring locusts into your borders. What are the locusts? Then they'll not understand the aspect of the vacated space produced by the contraction, how it is possible that in fact there is godliness there. You'll see in the future, you'll see in the times of Moshiach, how in fact Hashem was in everything in creation, how it was all an illusion. This in itself is receiving the reward. The main receiving the reward is in the future, that they will comprehend deeply and understand that which was impossible for them to understand in this world. Right? This is the whole book of the Guide of the Perplexed. Guide to the Perplexed from the Rambam, right? How is it possible that that us limited beings have free will, and Hashem, who does everything and knows everything, still allows for free will, even though He knows everything? How is this possible? Then, and he says, we can't really fathom it in this world. We're going to be able to fathom it, and then they'll know that the vacated space. What does it mean? That tomorrow He will bring the locusts into your midst. What are the locusts? The Midrash says that the locusts like the grasshoppers whose garment is part of itself, as the works of Kabbalah bring, that this is the mystery of the vacated space. Right? The garment is part of itself. The locusts are exoskeletons that are also skeletons, and they're also the flesh. It's all one and the same. The garment is the actual thing in and of itself. As we know, this whole world is full of garments. They appear to be one thing but are another thing. But the garment is an aspect of the contraction, that which formed the vacated space, which produces the aspect of garments. Right? So the garment, the vacated space in and of itself is a garment of Hashem. Even though it is that which produces garments, it makes it look as if there is no Hashem. The vacated space in itself is a garment. They will understand that it is part of itself. That is, in fact, there is godliness there, and even so is the aspect of a garment, contraction, that form the vacated space. So this is what it means, finally, that this is the aspect of tomorrow. My righteousness will bear witness for me. My righteousness, this is the aspect of the garments. The aspect of I clothe myself in righteousness. This is an Eov. For then, tomorrow, when reward will be received, the mystery of the aspect of garments, the aspect of the contraction that form the vacated space will be revealed, as explained above. This is because the aforementioned summit of Emunah. So great, right? So now we learned all these things. You got this far, it's wonderful. Right, 20 minutes in, and we learned a lot of different concepts and what it really means when Hashem in the Torah is telling Bo le Paro. Wonderful. These are all very nice things. What does it actually mean to me? How are we supposed to live in this world? How are we supposed to live this life? And what are we supposed to do when we encounter a heretic? What are we supposed to do if we ever encounter the vacated space? And what are we supposed to do to live this life, to get through this life? We're now in the time of so much atheism that has overcome the world, that a person is being attacked constantly, questioned constantly, by people who are aiming to just bring the person away, people who are fake actors, bad actors. How are we supposed to get through everything? This is because the aforementioned summit of Emunah will be revealed then, the aspect of come, sing from the summit of Emunah. What do you mean Emunah? What is Emunah? This is the aforementioned aspect of the exalted melody of the summit of Emunah, through which all the conundrums of the vacated space are nullified, as explained above. This is what it means when it says, tomorrow I'll bring Arbe. Arbe is locust. Arbe is an acronym for Achen Ruach Hu Benosh, which means, but in it is the spirit in men. But it is the spirit in men. Right? That within everything is the spirit, the Ruach. What's the Ruach? The Ruach is a song. What's the song? The song is Emunah. This is the melody. This is the aspect of melody, which is the aspect of the Ruach. That is the melody and song, the summit of faith, will be revealed then, as explained above, and consequently, all the heresy, even that of the vacated space, will be nullified, as explained above. So the only way really to come close to this world, this whole world, as we said, was created for compassion. And how can we receive the compassion if the whole world needed to go through a contraction in order to be revealed in itself in the first place? And now that we're coming too close to the times of Moshiach, we're seeing a wave of atheism that's come over the world. So how are we supposed to get through this time of the wave of Emunah? How are we supposed to get through this time? So how are we supposed to get through this time of the wave of atheism unscathed? Only with Emunah. Only with the Emunah. Only knowing to be able to close your eyes and say, Eino milvadai, Eino milvadai. I don't understand how it is possible, but I know that there is a Hashem. This is the only way to know that for sure Hashem exists, Hashem is here. You can bring all kinds of arguments, you can bring all kinds of things, but nothing can knock me off of this belief that Hashem runs the world. It's too much already. We know too much already. Right? The Paro represents these heresies that come. And what was it? That they believe that there's a Hashem, or they believe that there are gods, that there are things moving things. But an all-powerful God? No, that what they can't believe. And this is what separates Bnei Yisrael, the children of Israel, from the entire world. That we believe that for sure there's Hashem, that there's a oneness, there's no duality, there's no nothing. There's only Hashem. Hashem created everything. And in this way of not being able to be knocked off from our place, we're creating a boat to get across the moat of the vacated space. From the vacated space, to go from this world, from Olam Hazeh, crossing the vacated space to Olam Haba, and combining it. And now we're so close to Olam Haba. We're so close to the time of Moshiach. We're so close to that edge. And so we need just that little bit of extra push while the extra wave comes in, trying to keep us away from that island, keep us away from that amazing, amazing world. And so we should be zoichet to have real, true emunah, that we came into this world to work on our emunah, to know that Hashem runs the world. And this is what this whole gym of Kedusha is all about. This whole spiritual gym is all about, that's playing out in this physical world. This cosmic reality that we find ourselves in is only to help test us, only to help build our muscles of emunah. Only so that we should know more and more and more that Hashem runs the world. And this way we're going to see all of the illusions falling to the wayside, all the arguments falling to the wayside, and revealing the true path, the true future, tomorrow, which is right now, at about midnight, when Paro comes out in his pajamas and begs for the Jews to please stop, get out of here. And this way we're going to be sent to freedom, to true freedom, to practice and to share and to elevate the entire world together as one. With the coming Moshiach Tzidkenu, third base Hamikdash speedily, L'chaim.